directors or the heads of their organization. There's a lot of these big goals that they set for themselves in regards to leadership. But if you don't have the ability to be disciplined and lead yourself, then I think you'll ultimately fail at leading others. So I think that's just before we get started talking about anything in regards to leadership, you must lead yourself well, extremely well first. Because if not, you're just really going to be a hypocrite. You're not going to be practicing what you preach. You're going to be telling people and trying to lead them down a certain path. You're going to seek to be a role model for people, a motivator for people, a mentor for people. But if you're not able to lead yourself well, then you're not living what you say. And ultimately, I would say that that's a lack of integrity. So, integrity, leading yourself well. Once you're doing that, then I think you have a wonderful opportunity to lead other people down a path of excellence. And I also think it's important to note that leadership. I think most of the time we think about it in a positive way, but as we know that there's really bad leaders too, and there's people that lead people down the wrong path. So we need to make sure we understand everything I'm about to say. The rest of this talk is the idea of having great leadership, leadership with excellence, and then ultimately having the heart of a leader. And so that heart of a leader, that first word we'll talk about is the letter H. And that letter H is to hunger for wisdom. And right off the bat, I would say all of you that have chosen to sign up for this Zoom call and listen to so many successful leaders right off the bat, you are hungering for wisdom. You're wanting to learn more. You're stepping outside your comfort zone. You're sacrificing time away, from your friends and your family and your job to take notes and listen to all these wonderful leaders. And I would say right off the bat, you are hungry for wisdom just by being on this call today. So that hunger for wisdom is that idea that you could always learn more, regardless if you're, humbly, whether you went to an Ivy League school, the Wharton School of Business, whether you won an Olympic gold medal, there's still a lot of things that you can learn. I mean, whether I'm married and have 4 kids, I still have tons I can learn about being a better husband, tons I can learn about being a better father. I've had the honor to coach world and Olympic champions, but I still have so much I can learn as a coach. And so I think you get the point, is that regardless of what you've accomplished, it's important to stay hungry for wisdom. And I think it's important to understand there's a difference between accumulating a bunch of knowledge. It's not hunger for knowledge. It's hunger for wisdom, because you can accumulate a whole bunch of knowledge. You can take all this stuff in, you can take all these notes, you can put it in your brain, you can write it in put it in your phone, put it on your laptop and save all this information and know it all. But if you don't apply it, you don't teach it to others, you don't lead others in the right direction, then it's just a bunch of knowledge. So wisdom is that application of what you know. So to hunger for wisdom is to take in a lot of that knowledge, but ultimately to apply it. I mean, that's where the wisdom is going to come in. And you may say, well, how else can you hunger for wisdom? I would say another way you can hunger for wisdom and live that out is to find a mentor, somebody that's older than you, more experienced than you, somebody that's been there, done that. If you, like for me, my kids are 10, 7, 5, and 3. So I'm in a tough stage of them being young, but I have a mentor whose kids are in high school now, one's in college. So they've been down the path that I'm in right now. And learning from that individual in regards to how to be the best father I can be, that's a great way. Is to have a mentor that's been there and done that. That's how you can hunger for wisdom. Another way to hunger for wisdom is to be a reader. I heard that term before, that leaders are readers, and some of the best leaders that I know, I would say, are well read. They're always offering me books that I should read, encourage me to read certain books. Some of the top leaders of organizations, coaches, athletic directors, etc. Those leaders, I know most of them that I spend time with, those leaders are readers. And so I would seek wise counsel, asking people, hey, some of the best books you've read lately? What are some of the books that have inspired you the most? And write those things down, and then grab those books, pick them up, read them, and then share that information with others. By the way, everything I'm doing today, this Heart of Leadership, was a book somebody recommended to me. I've taken this knowledge, and I'm seeking to apply it wisely today through this Heart of Leadership. So in many ways, I'm practicing what I preach through that. Another way to hunger for wisdom is to Nowadays when I drive to work, a lot of times I'll listen to a bunch of different podcasts. I listen to sermons from some of my favorite pastors. I listen to leadership podcasts. I listen to, podcasts on biographies of great leaders, just learning again, back to that point of just hungering to learn more every single day. You can always learn more regardless of what you've accomplished. You can always learn more. So that's the first letter, H, is to hunger for wisdom. The second one, the letter E, for the heart of leadership, the letter E is to expect the best. And somebody that expects the best, simply, they're a person that has a positive attitude. When they wake up every single day, they're expecting it's going to be a great day. They're expecting that they're going to encourage people during that day. They're going to inspire people. They're going to learn a lot more that day. They're going to become a better person that day. They're going to become a better husband, father, coach, teacher, preacher. That person with that type of attitude, that positive attitude, those are the people that, for really honest, those are the people that we like to spend time with. That the person that we're around that's constantly playing the victim card, that's negative, that's just saying like, oh, this is a horrible situation. It's gonna be a horrible day. The weather's gonna be crappy. Our economy is going downhill. Our culture's going down the tubes. I mean, that type of talk, that type of self-talk, those aren't the people that I really want to spend time with, like, at all. I enjoy spending time with people that expect the best out of themselves, expect the best out of others, expect the best out of the day. And I think some of the best leaders I've ever been around, they are like that. Their attitude controls their altitude. Their attitude controls how high and how far they're going to get in life, how high and how far they're going to get in regards to their leadership. So that second letter, E, is to expect the best. So we have to hunger for wisdom, expect the best. The third one is probably the most challenging, because I think all of us struggle with pride. The third one is to accept responsibility. That's when you mess up, you own it. It's not pointing your finger at other people. It's his fault. It's her fault. The reason I didn't accomplish that is blaming other people. A great leader says, no, it's not their fault. It's my fault. I accept responsibility. I could have done a better job. I could have prepared more. I could have done things with more excellence to accomplish the task, and it's on me. Accepting that responsibility is really important, because I'm a big believer that the ego is the enemy. The ego is the enemy, and the ego will get in your way from owning your mistakes. And if you're not willing to accept responsibility and own your mistakes, and you're always wanting to blame other people, I think ultimately people aren't going to really want to follow you, because they think, sooner or later you're going to blame them for something, versus having this very mature, savvy characteristic of a leader, which is to accept responsibility. You say you're sorry, you own it, and you fail forward. Accept it, own it, learn from it, right? And fail forward. So we have hunger for wisdom, we have expect the best, we have accept responsibility. The R of the heart of leadership, that R is to respond with courage. Respond with courage is to have faith over fear. To it's like this country song. It's the Eric Church sings, like, I don't like to fight, but I'm not scared to bleed. It's like I have courage. I'm willing to go out there and be strong and courageous. Joshua 1:9 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or discouraged, for the Lord goes with you wherever you go. So when you wake up every morning, you walk out of the house and you go hit the day running, you're doing it with courage. You walk out there in the wrestling mat, you're doing it with courage. As a coach, when I walk in the wrestling room, I seek to have courage. When we go into big tournaments, the national tournament, the Olympic trials, the world championships, the Olympic championships, I want my wrestlers to see that I have courage. Because if they see me nervous, they see me biting my fingernails and all jittery, and if I look nervous and I look like that I'm not expecting the best, and I don't look like that I have courage, then of course my athletes will see that. And that lack of courage, right, that fear, that could be contagious on other people, and again, ultimately not allowing me to be the best leader I can be. So respond with courage versus fearing, right, failure, walking in fear. So we have to hunger for wisdom, we have to expect the best, we have to accept responsibility, and the R is to respond with courage. The last letter, that letter T, The letter T is, I think it really kind of puts a bow on this and pulls it all together, and probably the most powerful, and is to think others first. Think of others first. Be a servant leader. It's not all about me, myself, and I. There's this rap song I heard growing up by De La Soul, that me, myself, and I. That's not what a great leader does. A great leader is focused on others first. So again, me as a husband and a father, I want to put my wife first. I want to put my children, after her, in that order. But they come before my job. They come before my friends. My family comes first. In regards to, I walk in the wrestling room, I'm focused on my guys. I'm not thinking about me, how that practice is going to be all about me that day. I'm thinking about how can I serve, my athletes? How can I be the caretaker of their dreams? And the simple things, when I just, when I go to somebody's house, it's, can I say, hey, can I help you? Can I help you pick up those plates and take those to the kitchen? What can I do? Is there anything I can help you do to make your life easier? I'm here to serve. And I think those of you that know people like that, everybody respects that person. Everybody respects that person that's always willing to serve others. That's always willing to think of others first. And those individuals, they get praised by everybody. And the person that constantly self-centered, narcissistic, that it's all about them, those are the people that most of the people gossip about. Those are the people that people slander, saying that all they do is they care about themselves. All they do is they focus on themselves. They don't care about anybody else. And again, those type of people, they may lead for a short period of time, but they're not playing the long game in leadership. And I think somebody that's a servant leader that thinks others first, that person with that particular value will go as far as they want to go. And so to kind of pull this together, to understand that whole heart of leadership is that we want to hunger for wisdom. We want to expect the best. We want to accept responsibility. We want to respond with courage. And we want to think others first. And I would just say that I also have read books, and one of my favorite books I read is the Bible. And studying the New Testament and studying the life of Jesus. I mean, whether you believe he was the savior of the world or whether you believe, I do personally, but if you don't, if you read about Jesus and you just read about how he treated others and how he lived his life, I think you'd realize that he was one of the greatest leaders of all time. And when we set our time based on him, BC, before Christ, right? Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. And, that man, he served others. That man, he got down on his knees around his disciples and he washed their feet. And I remember the Apostle Peter going like, Lord, you don't have to get down on your knees and wash my feet. That's for somebody else to do. And Jesus was like, no, if I don't do this, you're not going to understand who I truly am. I didn't come here to be served. I came here to serve. And Jesus, he was a ultimate. There's kind of three words that start with the letter M. He was an ultimate role model. And you can be a role model and nobody, will ever meet you, they'll never come across your path, but they just watch you from afar and maybe now clearly watch you through social media. So you can be a model to others. That's a great way to be a leader. The next kind of deeper phase is to be a motivator. And you can motivate people this way. Hopefully I'll motivate some people today on this talk. You can motivate people through public speaking so people can be inspired and motivated by you. But I think the deepest way and most meaningful way to impact the lives of others through leadership is to mentor them. And that's where you meet them face to face, meet them for breakfast, and nowadays it's been really common this last year to do a lot of Zoom calls with individuals, but you meet them, you spend that time with them, you're willing to talk about your own peccadillos, your own weaknesses, and share how you overcame those. And I think when you do that, I think that's very real. It's very genuine. And it's a really powerful way to mentor other people, because if you come across and act like you never make mistakes, that you don't have any problems, you don't have any issues, you got all your crap together, so to speak, then that person, they kind of sniff that out and they realize that, this guy's not being honest. He's not being genuine. He's not being real. So I would encourage all of you, as you seek to be the best leaders you can be, you can be role models for people where, people on the other side of the world, they may hear you or hear about you or read something that you've written or see a speech that you've given. And so you can be a role model to people. We can be role models to people through social media. The next phase is motivating people. That's really kind of inspiring them and getting excited about something that they want to accomplish. But again, if you have that time, I would encourage you to make it. Meet with some individuals that are most often they're younger than you. Meet them for breakfast, meet them for lunch, meet them for coffee, and spend that time really pouring into them and mentoring them. And to kind of close this, and I'm going to kind of open this up to questions. Is that if you want to say, how do I have a good handle on leadership? What's a great way to remember it? The whole reason I chose this talk today is hopefully I'm giving you a great framework, a great acronym for the heart of leadership, so you can share it with others, because it's been really powerful for me. I hope it was powerful for you. And I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of books on leadership. But this one I read by Mark Miller about a month ago, over the heart of leadership, to me, it's really impacted me the most. I would say not only it's impacted me, we read this as a team. The Pennsylvania Regional Training Center is the RTC that I coach at Penn and Drexel. And, my guys, Ethan Lezak, Joey McKenna, Dave McFadden, Mark Hall, and Jordan Burroughs is going to join us here about another week or so. I mean, taking those guys through the heart of leadership. Now they kind of use this stuff. They'll use the terminology with me. They'll say, "Hey, Coach Slay, I know I need to accept responsibility." Or they'll say, like, "I'm going to go into this with courage, Coach. I'm going to respond with courage." Or they'll say, "Yeah, I'm going to go out there at Olympic camp." Like, for example, Joey, was the alternate. He didn't make the team this year. He lost to Jordan Oliver in the finals. But Joey McKenna, Dave McFadden, and Mark Hall and Jordan Burroughs obviously came up close to Kyle Dake. He was the alternate as well. But all those guys, I encourage them, when you go to the Olympic camp, you're going there. You did not make the Olympic team, but you go there and you think of others first, and you go there to serve the Olympic team, because it's ultimately about them right now going into Tokyo. So you think others first and you serve them. And I've just received from great feedback from Coach Zadok and Coach Russell and some of the other coaches that our guys from the PRTC have done a great job doing that. So I think it's a pretty powerful way to think about leadership. So I'll stop right there. They told me I had about 20 minutes, so it's 3:19 Eastern time. So I hit that in about 20, and I want to leave this last 10 minutes or so to be able to open this up and answer any questions any of you have about the PRTC, regional training centers, University of Pennsylvania, being a husband, father, coach, whatever it may be. You guys are everybody's free, men and women, clearly, to ask me anything you want.
All right, so let's get those questions in for Coach Slay. Obviously, as everyone here can notice, he's a wealth of knowledge, has spent a lot of time really thinking about his own leadership very thoughtfully and intentionally. First question comes in from Nick White. During your time in coaching, can you name some methods that you have used successfully to, create or mentor leaders within the teams that you're part of?
Nick, I would say that the most recently is that, when we were doing this in person at Penn in the film room there, the group of guys that I coached, that I named before, the Ethan Lezak, Joey McKenna's, those guys, we were meeting in person. But when COVID hit, we started just doing a Zoom call like this once a week. And so every Monday at 10 o'clock, we would meet like this. And the structure that we followed, Nick, is that we went through some books. So we went through The Heart of Leadership. We went through a book called Counterfeit God by Tim Keller. We went through a book called The Secret of Teams by Mark Miller, right? So I take those guys through different books and we talk about it, and we take notes on it, and then again we challenge each other to use the information from the book we're learning in our conversations and practice in our conversations when we travel. But I think that's that's been a really, really powerful way. And then that's kind of as a group. And then I would say, like I mentioned earlier, I take that time to meet these guys individually for lunch. I'll set time and say, "Hey, Joey, let's meet for lunch," or "Hey, David, let's meet for coffee," or "Hey, Mark Hall, let's." A couple weeks ago, he just came over to my house and spent time with my wife and kids, and we had dinner together. And so I try to spend that individual time with them as well. So there's the group time, but also I think it's really important to get to know them, individually.
Yeah, no, and I really like the book study that you're talking about. I mean, one of the things that I think is important about it is it's an active process. It's not just you transferring knowledge directly to them. There's something that they have to bring to the table for their own growth, where they're showing up with something to add to that conversation and be able to share with that as a group. So I think that's think that's a big piece. Next question comes from Mari Tomke. If I say your last name wrong, I apologize. How do you best balance coaching and being a husband and father? I think this is something a lot of coaches struggle with. So this is a great question.
First of all, I'll tell you, thank you so much, gang, for having questions, for getting on here, for taking the time to listen today. I really appreciate, this time and y'all being thoughtful to ask these questions. But I would say that is, if I'm being really candid, that question right there is the biggest challenge for me. And such a challenge that I coached at USA Wrestling. Some of you know that I was our assistant national coach for 8 years. I helped coach our 2012 Olympic team in London, 2016 Olympic team in Rio. I was our national development coach for 3 years, with Kyle Snyder, Mark Hall, Yanni Diakomahala, Spencer Lee, that crew. And I share all that with you just to say that most people would have thought, why would you leave that situation? Why would you leave? Why would you leave the opportunity to potentially be the head Olympic coach? I stepped away, which I'll talk about in a minute. And Bill Zadek, him and I both were assistant national coaches, right? And clearly, Bill's the head coach now and doing a wonderful job. And Bill and I are great friends. But people said, why did you leave that situation? How come you wouldn't apply to be the head coach? Because doesn't worldly wisdom say that I should have wanted to be the head Olympic coach, right? Just keep climbing up the ladder. I mean, that's what worldly wisdom is going to tell you. Like, Brandon, why would you not want to be the head Olympic coach? And my answer to that, gang, is that I was gone over 100 days a year. So again, great trips, taking the team to Kiev, Ukraine, taking the team to Baku, Azerbaijan, sometimes Paris, sometimes Madrid, but traveling all around the world, which I was having a great time doing. But, my wife was at home for a 14-day stretch, raising 3 kids on her own. And I was starting to miss a lot of things. And I always tell dads, I think some dads, you're going to miss some things because you have a job. I mean, you're not just sitting around home all the time, 100% of the time. You have a job. So you may miss some things, but you don't want to miss most things. So if you start missing most things, I think if you really want to be the best leader you can be, the best husband you can be, the best father you can be, if you're starting to miss most things, I would just encourage you to evaluate what you're doing. And, I did that. And that's why I chose to leave USA Wrestling. It's nothing against USA Wrestling, had a great 8 years there. But that's why I chose to move to Philadelphia and take over as the executive director and head coach of the PRTC because I had more control of my schedule. And we didn't have to travel. I didn't have to take the national team to every single international tour. I just was responsible for a smaller group of guys. So that's a really important question. And I would say that's why I changed jobs. And that's why I moved on the other side of the country, which it's been a wonderful transition. But I think sometimes you may have to sacrifice a certain job, a certain title, if you're really, really serious about being the best husband and father you can be, because it's really challenging. And I would say that nowadays in 2021, here's another thing that's really important that it's a major struggle, but my wife and I, we're not going to give up. We're fighting through this. Is, on a Sunday, you can call it Sabbath, whatever you want to call it, is putting all the devices away, putting iPads, right, laptops, putting all that stuff away, and just spending time as a family. And like we go down to the creek together. We kind of joke. A lot of people around where we live, they say they go down to the shore. We say we go down to the creek. All right. So I take my family down to the creek and all the rafts. I blow up all these rafts for my kids, and they float down the creek, and we just spend that time together. And I think my kids really, ultimately, they appreciate that. But I'm going to tell you that's the hardest. That's probably the most challenging thing in my life, and I cannot give up on it. I have to keep wrestling through it. So great question.
No, I wrestling through it. I think that's a great way to phrase it. One of the quotes from Marcus Aurelius I always liked was, "Life is more of a wrestling match than a dance." So some things aren't always going to be smooth, but finding that balance definitely takes some work. All right, so we got a couple questions from a couple different attendees about mentorship, about one, finding personal mentors. What is a good way to go about finding personal mentors, and what would you look for in them?
The way I've found personal mentors is connected to, I went to school at the University of Pennsylvania. So alumni that I've known, for example, one of my mentors, he's 72 years old. I'm 45. So the age doesn't matter so much, but somebody with that much experience, it's great to learn from those individuals. But but you end up, you connect with them, you build this, I would say, a genuine, authentic relationship first. You don't come in hot right off the bat going, "Hey, my name's Brandon Slay, would you mentor me?" I think you kind of build that genuine relationship with them, and over time, once they see that, there's this quid pro quo of you caring for each other back and forth, there's this meaningful relationship, then I think it's important. You have to ask them. You'd say, like, "Hey, do you have 1 hour a week or 1 hour every couple of weeks to whether meet me for breakfast, or if they live, my mentor lives in San Francisco. So we get on Zoom calls like this and we talk through things. Do you have that, 1 hour a week or 1 hour every couple of weeks that you could mentor me? And by the way, you're not going to have to structure this. I'm going to bring questions to you and allowing you to respond. So you don't necessarily have to plan to put a lot of work in. I just want to really kind of pick your life, pick your brain, and be able to learn, because clearly you've been there and done that. And I have a lot I could learn from you. And I think most of the time, if that person is the type of person you want to follow anyway, I would imagine that they would be willing to be a mentor for you.
No, I think that's great. And again, that growth and mentorship where we're bringing something to the table, rather kind of like with the book study, those athletes have to show up with some knowledge or something that they've come prepared to talk about. And I love that you're framing it in that way when you seek out mentors yourself. It's not just a passive, I'm waiting for someone to give me knowledge, but I'm seeking that out. I think that's really insightful, Coach. So, we got a couple minutes here. What are things that people could do if they want to support either like their local RTC or support the PRTC? Obviously, being living in Philly, I'm pretty big on the PRTC being successful. Philly wrestling right now's ecosystem is growing, and there's so much success and growth in the sport there. But what are some things that our attendees can do to support the local RTCs or support the PRTC?
Well, I would say locally, wherever you live, I think it is important. You're wise, Jake, in saying that if you live somewhere near Lincoln, Nebraska, the Nebraska Wrestling Training Center, they need support. If you live somewhere near Iowa City, the Hawkeye Club, needs support, right? And I could keep going with other schools, but for us, we live in Philadelphia, and so we partner with University of Pennsylvania and Drexel, two Division I programs, and we make up our Olympic Training Center where we train there with them. And again, if you guys, most of you you've heard or know, the guys that we're raising nonprofit dollars to make sure we pay are Ethan Lezak, Joey McKenna, Mark Hall, Jordan Burroughs, Dave McFadden. And if you guys don't understand, RTC's Olympic level wrestling, we don't have the NFL. We don't have the NBA. We don't have Major League Baseball. So the RTC model, this is the professional level for us. And clearly we're not putting 80,000 people in the seats every Sunday. So it's not a for-profit interest. It's a nonprofit interest. And so we totally are dependent on inspiring people and what we're doing. And, at the PRTC, our desire is to enrich lives locally, Philadelphia, right, and globally through the sport of Olympic wrestling. And I think that, we've been blessed to be able to do that. So if anybody felt inspired to want to support us, our website's PennsylvaniaRTC.org. And up in the upper right-hand corner, people can give, one time or monthly there. But that would, if you're inspired to support all those guys I mentioned earlier, and then, humbly, support my family and what we're doing to lead these guys, then we would really appreciate you partnering with us.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We just put that down in the chat in case anybody wants to follow that website now. Brandon, we appreciate your time. You are doing great things in building up that RTC, great things in supporting Philly wrestling at multiple levels, which any of us in the local community see. And we appreciate you joining us to share your knowledge with the wider wrestling world. So thanks very much for coming on.
It's an honor. Thank all of you so much for your time, and thank all of you for putting this together. Take care.
Of course. All right. If you guys would want to move over to Pete Jacobson, he's starting now. We put the link into the chat box. Without further ado, we'll let you guys get out of here and continue having a great day.